The airline reduced its operating loss by around 17% to $42.7 million, but the combined $470.9 million rise in fuel prices, net finance costs and other direct operating costs, all of that combined helped to push the airline's costs up by over 70% to near $1.2 billion. And that eclipsed the 66% rise in turnover for the year. The airline reported a 68% rise in passenger traffic to around 3.7 million, with the cabin factor for the year standing at 74%. Now, some hours ago, I spoke to the airline's chairman, Michael Joseph. I started by exploring the factors behind that near $300 million loss, starting with a focus on fuel.
As you know, oil prices went through the roof due to the war in Ukraine. Only in the second half did they start tapering down again to a more reasonable level. But in the first half, it was incredibly high. In fact, 60% more higher than what we budgeted for in our original budget. The second big issue that we had was during the 2022, the big loans that we had on our books with Exim Bank and Samburu and so on were novated to the government of Kenya. Now that novation means they bring the loans onto their books, but they can only do it in shillings. So we had to convert the loan that was on our books in dollars. We had to convert it into Kenyan shillings, and we've suffered an exchange rate loss. And now below the line, that made this loss that we have. It was a huge foreign exchange one-off fee or one-off accounting figure that we had to take into account, and that made that loss that made the company have that heavy loss at the bottom line. If we had not had that, the two together, we would have made a slight profit of 2.6 billion, I believe.
The Kenyan government, the primary shareholder in Kenya Airways, has been also keen. There's been a lot of chatter around trying to find, a significant equity investor who can take a position in KQ, help to clean up the balance sheet, put in a bit more capital into the business as well. Given these two ideas, right, on one hand, there's this partnership that you're working on with SAA, but on the other, you have the Kenyan government saying, look, we need someone to put money into KQ, perhaps take up part of the shares in the airline as well. What gets priority, or are they going to be running concurrently?
No, I think no. Priority is a strategic investor into Kenya Airways, because we cannot go into a Pan-African airline group with a balance sheet that is not sound and strong enough. By the way, SA is the same situation. Both our balance sheets are not the right balance sheets to form a proper partnership, or as we're proposing. So it's first to get a strategic investor into KQ, and then we will move to the Pan-African airline group. So the priority is very clear for us.
All right, then. I know a deal with Delta is off the table. You mentioned as much during the briefing today. But what does an equity investor for KQ look like for you? From when you sit at the board level, what sort of priorities or other characteristics are you looking for in that potential investor?
Okay. So firstly, whatever we do with a strategic investor, we need the government and our shareholders, which is also the banks, to approve. So, what does it look like? Ideally, from our point of view, from the board's point of view, from the management point of view, it would be a strategic investor that would invest significant sums of money into the airline. It may not necessarily be another airline. I think, all of us, worry about, if you look at another airline, who could that be if you look around the world? And I'm not sure that we want to go into a strategic partner with another airline. I think it would be ideally a financial strategic investor that sees the opportunity with Kenya Airways. But we are very early days now, and we need to see who is out there. We've had a number of discussions with potential strategic investors, but nothing concrete. What we need now, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but it may be that there is a cabinet paper that is going to go to cabinet, which has been put together by our shareholders, which is mostly by the Treasury and then the Ministry of Transport. Once that's approved and we understand what the government sees the future with Kenya Airways, there was a lot of talk prior to the election, various people saying certain things, but we're very clear that we want to restructure Kenya Airways, but we do need government support. Once we have that formal approval and we know where we're going, then I think we will start to take much more positive steps to looking for a strategic investor. Indeed. But I don't think we could say now who or what that should be.
Indeed. I'm just curious. I want to press you a little bit on something you said. It's not necessarily an airline that you're looking at as someone who could actually put cash into it, because talking to industry players, just doing a bit of reading around this particular topic and looking at what's happening in the market as a whole, right next door, Qatar's taken a stake in Rwandair. They're building this massive airport in Bugesera as well. ET has had explosive growth for the last 10 years. And if you look at what sort of airlines' balance sheets might support an investment in KQ, the big Middle Eastern three certainly come to mind, but they're not an ideal fit, if I understand you correctly. Why?
Because I'm not sure we would have the same. And look, let me speak very carefully, because we haven't spoken to any of them yet, and I don't want to presuppose what they might be thinking. But our thoughts are, I mean, you have to eliminate ET, because ET is not going to come make a strategic investment in KQ.
Yeah,
definitely. You have Qatar, which is really doing with Rwanda. So you're looking at Etihad, the Emirates, and so on. That's those companies. I'm not sure that why they would want to make a strategic invest in KQ unless they want to move our passengers to their hubs. Remember, they have this hub structure. So, the interest of, I would assume Emirates would be say, okay, look, we need to move Kenya passengers from Nairobi to Dubai and then fly them all over the world. Similarly, what Etihad would do, and maybe even Qatar would want to do if they were interested. I don't think that's what we want to do, because remember, we see, and the government sees Kenya Airways as a strategic asset of Kenya.